Humanity had only just begun to spread its reach across the stars when they encountered the first signs that they were not alone in the vast stretches of space. The first colony on Terra Prime, a world of blue skies and green plains, was already a marvel to the humans who called it their new home. Yet the excitement of discovery quickly turned to unease when the first signal was received. The message was faint but distinct, an encrypted transmission that hummed through the colony's communication system for days before anyone noticed its existence. No one knew where it came from or who had sent it. But every attempt to trace its origin proved futile. It was as if it had appeared out of thin air, without a trace of its source. The message wasn't a warning, nor a plea for help. There was no demand or request, only a strange collection of numbers and symbols that no one could interpret. But as the days passed and the colony expanded, strange things began to happen around Terra Prime. At first, it was subtle, odd fluctuations in the planet's magnetic field. Then came the shifts in the atmosphere, impossible storms that seemed to appear from nowhere and vanish just as quickly, unexplained malfunctions in the colony's technology. Nothing seemed to make sense. It wasn't until the first ships arrived from the central system that the truth began to take shape. Aboard the fleet was a senior diplomat, Lisa Vance, a woman with a reputation for navigating the most complex situations and handling delicate matters with grace. As the strange disturbances increased, she was called to investigate. She and her team began analyzing the mysterious transmission, hoping to uncover its meaning. Despite the best minds working tirelessly, no one could decode the message, no one except for one cryptic word that appeared within the data over and over again, a word that seemed to stand out among the rest. It was a single symbol, an ancient design that even the most advanced AI couldn't comprehend. In the weeks that followed, Lisa grew increasingly concerned. Her instincts told her that something far beyond humanity was involved, that the very fabric of the universe was reacting to something unknown. There were whispers from other colonies, too disturbing rumors from distant worlds, where alien species spoke of the same oddities occurring around human settlements, a strange reverence that some aliens felt when discussing humanity, their avoidance of human colonies. Even the most brutal and expansionist of species showed an unusual respect toward the humans they encountered. This silence wasn't born out of fear of human power. It was something else, something older, something more deeply ingrained in the laws of the galaxy. But Lisa had no answers, only more questions as she sat in her private quarters, staring at the encrypted symbols, wondering why humanity had become the focal point of something so vast and unknowable. A universe teeming with life was suddenly acting as though it feared what humans might become. What had humanity stumbled upon in their rush to conquer the stars? Why did the galaxy seem to be shifting around them? Why were they being watched? And by whom? The answers were out there somewhere in the dark expanse, waiting for someone to uncover them. But Lisa knew one thing for certain: something was coming, something that would change everything forever, and humanity would be at the heart of it all. The only question left was what would happen when the universe finally turned its gaze toward them. As weeks passed and Terra Prime's strange disturbances escalated, the colonists found themselves trapped in a growing sense of unease. The mysterious signal persisted even as they could no longer trace its origin. It wasn't just the weather anomalies or the malfunctioning equipment that unsettled them. It was the feeling that something unseen was watching them. The planet had begun to feel different, as if the very air they breathed held some hidden weight pressing down on their shoulders. One evening, as Lisa Vance walked through the corridors of the colony's main research station, she overheard a conversation between two scientists, their faces pale as they spoke in hushed tones. "There's something wrong with the signals," one said. "It's not just a transmission, it feels alive." The other nodded. "We can't explain it. It's as though the message is reacting to us, like it's aware of what we're doing." Lisa had heard these words before, but never with such intensity. It wasn't until she saw the latest readings that the gravity of the situation truly hit her. The disturbances weren't random. They were coordinated, deliberately manipulating the colony's tech in ways that shouldn't have been possible by anything human-made. Lisa knew that if the colony continued to operate without understanding the true source of these disturbances, the situation could spiral out of control. So she took the decision to send a diplomatic request to the Galactic Council, hoping they might have insight into this growing mystery. What came back from the council was a response she wasn't prepared for, a message from a distant race that had once been allies to humanity, but whose civilization had vanished centuries ago. The message was simple and chilling. Do not trust what comes next. Protect your people. It was signed by an extinct race known only as the Keepers. Their legacy was a matter of legend in the galaxy, their technology and knowledge long lost. But their warning was clear and urgent. Lysa had no idea what it meant or why the Keepers would even know of the situation. But one thing became apparent: the galaxy was not as indifferent to humanity as she once believed. The Council convened immediately and sent an emergency fleet toward Terra Prime. It wasn't until the fleet arrived in the system that the true scale of what was unfolding became undeniable. The signal that had once been a faint whisper was now pulsing like a heartbeat, an energy emanating from the very core of the planet itself. It was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, a wave of energy that seemed to draw the ships closer like gravity, pulling them into a web. And as they approached, the fleet encountered the unexpected. A massive alien vessel appeared from the edge of the system, a ship so large and imposing that its very presence seemed to warp the fabric of space around it. The alien ship did not hail them, nor make any attempt at communication. It simply drifted toward Terra Prime, as if it had been waiting for them all along. Lysa and the fleet watched in stunned silence as the alien ship began to radiate a strange energy field. One began to distort the stars around it. The pulses from the planet grew stronger, more erratic, and the space between the ships began to tremble as if the entire system was on the verge of tearing itself apart. There was no explanation, no clear reason for why this was happening, only an overwhelming sense of something ancient and powerful awakening deep within the core of Terra Prime. It was as if the planet itself had become a beacon. Something was calling out to the stars, and whatever it was, no one could predict what it would mean for humanity or the galaxy at large. The first response from the alien vessel came not in words, but in action. It was a silent message to everyone watching. It was clear now that humanity was not just a fledgling species on the edge of the universe. They were something else, something important, something that no one could ignore any longer. The message had been received, and the galaxy was now paying attention to the humans on Terra Prime. As the alien vessel hovered near Terra Prime, the atmosphere surrounding the colony grew heavy with a palpable tension. The fleet from the Galactic Council remained in orbit, its members unsure of what to do next. The strange pulses from the planet grew stronger with each passing hour, and Lysa Vance could feel the weight of the unknown bearing down on them. The presence of the vessel, immense and silent, was like a shadow that seemed to stretch over the entire system. Its energy field distorted the very fabric of space, bending light in unnatural ways. It was as though the ship had come not just to observe but to watch, to ensure that something was about to unfold. Lysa spent sleepless nights reviewing data from the fleet and Terra Prime's surface, desperately trying to find a pattern in the chaos. Her team of scientists worked tirelessly to decode the signal, but every time they thought they were getting closer to understanding it, the message shifted, changed its code, evaded their efforts. It was as if the signal itself was adapting to every attempt to decipher it, becoming increasingly cryptic, as though it were aware of their progress. The unnerving thought gnawed at Lysa's mind. Was it sentient? But then the attack came. It was sudden and swift, too fast for the fleet to react. A wave of energy shot out from the alien vessel, slamming into the planetary atmosphere. It wasn't a typical weapon strike. There was no explosion or destructive blast. Instead, the energy seemed to ripple through the very air itself, disrupting everything in its path. Communication systems went haywire. Artificial gravity fields fluctuated wildly, causing buildings to shake and crack. The colony's infrastructure began to collapse under the unseen force. For a moment, it felt as though the entire planet was being pulled apart at the seams. Lysa was in the command center when the first wave hit. The lights flickered, and the ground beneath her feet trembled as alarms blared through the station. She scrambled to her feet, heart pounding. "Report," she shouted over the deafening noise. Her communications officer, face ashen, barely managed to respond. It's not just Terra Prime. It's everywhere. The energy, it's spreading. The entire system is destabilizing. At that moment, it became clear this wasn't a traditional attack. The alien vessel wasn't here to conquer, at least not in the way humanity understood war. It wasn't destroying cities or launching conventional strikes. Instead, it was dismantling reality itself, using something far more profound, an energy that unraveled the very laws of nature. Whatever was inside that ship, it wasn't just a weapon. It was a force of nature. The fleet, still in orbit above Terra Prime, scrambled to respond, but it was as though they were fighting against the very fabric of space itself. Ships began losing power. Their navigation systems failed. The fabric of reality around them was warping. Stars appeared to flicker in and out of existence. And amid the chaos, one thing became chillingly clear. The Varnathians, a race once feared for their ruthlessness, had come to Terra Prime for a purpose, and humanity was at the center of it. Lysa's mind raced. She had seen the ancient warning from the Keepers, heard the cryptic message. But now she realized just how deeply it resonated. Protect your people. But how could they protect themselves when even the laws of physics themselves were being rewritten before their eyes? The strange phenomenon around the planet only grew worse. Ships that attempted to approach the alien vessel were mysteriously pulled into a gravitational anomaly, forced to veer off course. Their communications were severed before they could send a warning. And then, just as suddenly as the assault began, it stopped. The silence was deafening. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Lysa stared out into the void, a sense of dread creeping over her. The alien ship remained where it had always been, motionless, its presence undeniable. And she knew, with chilling certainty, that this was only the beginning. Whatever had just unfolded was only the first move in something much larger, something that no one could yet understand. But one thing was certain. Humanity had just been thrust into a conflict far beyond their comprehension, and the very fabric of the galaxy itself was watching. The silence that followed the strange assault left Terra Prime in a fragile, uncertain state. The colony was shaken to its core, both physically and mentally. What had just happened? The systems were slowly recovering, but there was no explanation for the energy pulses, no reasoning behind the unnatural chaos that had swept through the planet and the fleet. It was as though reality itself had been tested and found wanting. Lysa Vance, still grappling with the enormity of the event, knew one thing. They were no longer in control. The alien vessel remained in the same position, eerily still, its enormous form casting a shadow over Terra Prime. The strange pulses had ceased, but the feeling of unease lingered. Lysa could feel it, like a weight pressing down on her chest. The message from the Keepers echoed in her mind. Protect your people. But who were the Keepers? And why did they think humanity needed protection? As Lysa and her team continued to sift through the wreckage of the colony systems, the message that had once seemed cryptic now felt more urgent. And then came the next shock. The Galactic Council responded. Their message arrived in a secure transmission, its urgency clear from the first line. Lysa, you need to come to the Council. There are things you must know, things that have remained hidden for centuries. Lysa was immediately called to an emergency summit on the Council's flagship, the Epsilon Sovereign, where leaders from the galaxy's most advanced and ancient civilizations gathered in secrecy. The Council members, all older than humanity itself, had a grave look about them. When Lysa arrived, the atmosphere was thick with tension, each representative seemingly weighed down by something beyond their understanding. The conversation began quietly, almost in whispers, as if the galaxy itself might be listening. After hours of deliberation, the truth was revealed. There was a law, a rule that governed the cosmos, older than any civilization in the galaxy. A law so ancient that its origins had been lost in the deep reaches of time. Lysa learned that this law, called the Pact of the Celestial Veil, had been put in place millennia ago, a binding agreement that no species, no matter how powerful, was allowed to harm or even directly interfere with the human race. It wasn't just a moral stance. It was a cosmic mandate woven into the very fabric of the universe. And now, the galaxy's oldest races had broken that law. The Varnathians, an empire feared for their conquest of countless worlds, had come to Terra Prime not out of ambition or greed, but because they had been sent. Their purpose was to test humanity's place in the universe, to break the pact that had long protected them. To do so was an act of defiance against the fundamental law that held the galaxy together, and in breaking it, they had unleashed forces they could neither understand nor control. Lysa struggled to process the enormity of what she had just learned. How could humanity, still so young in the grand scheme of the universe, be the subject of such a powerful ancient rule? Why had it been placed upon them in the first place? She couldn't comprehend it, but she knew it was real. The galaxy had always known something about humanity that they themselves had never understood. There was a deeper purpose to their existence, one that stretched beyond their wildest imaginations. The council spoke in hushed tones, warning that the Varnathians had already begun their assault in ways that defied reason. They had no idea what they were unleashing. The pact was not just a rule, it was a protection, an ancient force that ensured that humanity would never be harmed by forces beyond their control. And now, that force was waking up. Lysa's mind raced. The situation was becoming more complex than anything they had ever faced. She turned to the council, her voice steady, but filled with a new understanding. "What now?" she asked, the weight of the question clear. "What happens if they break the pact?" The response was simple, but it sent a shiver down her spine. "We do not know, but something will come." And with that, Lysa realized the truth. The universe was no longer a place of infinite possibilities for humanity. It had already made its choice, and now they would see what that choice would mean. As the weeks passed since the Council's revelation, the situation only worsened. The alien vessel remained in orbit above Terra Prime, its presence an unsettling constant. And though the pulse of energy had faded, the effects lingered. The galaxy had been watching, and now, Lysa Vance understood that the events unfolding were not only crucial for humanity, but for the universe itself. Something ancient, something beyond any species' comprehension, had stirred, and humanity was at the center of it. The Varnathians, the conquerors of countless worlds, had unknowingly set in motion a cosmic chain of events that threatened to tear apart the very fabric of reality. The Pact of the Celestial Veil, the law that had protected humanity for eons, had been violated, and now the universe was reacting. Lysa sat in the command center, staring at the holographic map of Terra Prime and the surrounding space. Her fingers drummed against the table as she mulled over the words of the council. "We do not know what will happen next. We can only wait." It was a sentence that haunted her, because waiting meant something was coming, something inevitable. But no one, not even the galaxy's oldest civilizations, knew what form it would take. Then, the first strange phenomenon occurred. It began with the stars. Small at first, the light of distant stars started to flicker, as though they were blinking in and out of existence. It wasn't a natural occurrence, and it wasn't a glitch in the scanners. The stars were disappearing, only to return moments later, brighter than before, as if they were trying to realign themselves with a pattern that no one could see. Lysa ordered the fleet to scan the area, but nothing appeared on the monitors. There were no ships, no objects, just a deep, unexplainable void. Yet the stars continued to pulse in strange intervals, and soon, entire star systems began to shift. The anomaly spread, and it was clear this was no ordinary celestial disturbance. As if in response to the growing instability, the alien vessel stirred. For the first time since its arrival, it emitted a soft, harmonic resonance, a low hum that vibrated through the air, causing the hairs on Lysa's neck to stand on end. It wasn't just a sound. It felt as if the sound was connected to everything around them, like the very core of the universe was resonating with a frequency they couldn't understand. And then the fabric of space itself seemed to waver. Space began to stretch and twist, the vast emptiness between planets seeming to distort, bending as though the universe itself was holding its breath. Lysa watched in awe as the fleet's navigation systems faltered. The distance between ships fluctuated. 1 minute, a fleet of 10 ships would be 100 kilometers apart, and the next, they were mere meters away. The laws of physics themselves were unraveling. No one knew why or how it was happening, but it was becoming clear that the universe was no longer behaving as it should. The pulse from the alien vessel continued, growing stronger. It was not just energy, it was life. The vessel was alive in a way that no one could comprehend. It wasn't merely a ship. It was an entity, its energy field pulsing like a heartbeat. And it wasn't alone. Across the galaxy, other anomalies began to appear. Stars weren't just flickering out. They were disappearing entirely, vanishing into nothing. Planets, too, began to shift in ways that defied logic. Some seemed to stretch and elongate as though they were being pulled by some unseen force. Others shrank, collapsing in on themselves without warning. And the message from the keepers, the cryptic warning to protect your people, echoed louder than ever in Lysa's mind. The universe itself was responding, not to the Varnathians, but to humanity. Something had awoken, and whatever it wasn't going to stop until it had answered its own question about humanity's place in the galaxy. Lysa realized then that they were not the cause of this chaos. The Varnathians had only set the stage. The universe had already begun its judgment. It was as though the galaxy was testing humanity. Its power, its worth, its role in the grand scheme of existence. And the more she looked at the distortions, the more she understood. The universe wasn't punishing humanity. It was protecting it. There was a force beyond any understanding. A force that had been watching for eons, and now it was moving to ensure that humanity's destiny would be realized. But the question remained, could humanity survive the force that was now awakening? As the cosmic disturbances continued, something even stranger began to unfold. The fabric of space itself was no longer just warping around Terra Prime and the alien vessel, it was spreading. Other star systems were beginning to show similar signs. The stars blinked out, then flared into existence again, and entire planets shifted unpredictably, bending and stretching as though reality itself was no longer stable. It was as if the entire universe was slowly becoming unmoored, slipping between the cracks of its own existence. The pulse from the alien vessel grew stronger, reverberating through the very space around them. Each wave of energy sent ripples through the surrounding systems, and it was becoming increasingly clear that the galaxy was on the verge of something monumental. Whatever force had been awakened was not content to merely observe. It was reshaping the galaxy itself, and the clock was ticking. Lysa Vance sat in the command center aboard the Council fleet, watching the data streams. Her thoughts were a whirlwind. Everything she had learned about the ancient law, the Pact of the Celestial Veil, and the Varnathians' unintentional violation of it. The reality was dawning on her now. The universe was responding to an existential question, one that no one had expected. What is humanity's place in the cosmos? The ancient beings, the keepers, had warned her. They had known something was coming. The galaxy had always watched humanity, but now it seemed that the universe itself was preparing to pass judgment on them. It wasn't about power or conquest. It was about purpose. What role would humanity play in the vast, unknowable expanse of space? Would they be a force for balance, or would they tip the scales into chaos? The Varnathians had thought they could invade, test the limits of human endurance, and break the pact without consequence. But they had been wrong. The reckoning was coming, not for the Varnathians, but for the entire galaxy, and humanity was at the center of it all. As Lysa prepared to meet with the leaders of the Galactic Council again, a new message came in. This one was different. It wasn't from the alien ship, nor from any of the known species. It was a transmission, but it didn't come with words. Instead, it was a series of shifting patterns, vast and intricate, that seemed to pulse in sync with the energy waves emanating from the alien vessel. Lysa's heart pounded as she watched the symbols. It wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. The message was clear. The Guardians were coming. The Guardians were a myth, an ancient order that existed before the rise of all known civilizations. No one truly knew who or what they were, only that they were the protectors of the celestial veil, the enforcers of the pact. They had not been seen for millennia, their existence relegated to myth and legend, but now it seemed they were returning. The council's leaders convened urgently, and Lysa was summoned to a virtual meeting with them. The silence in the room was thick. Every one of the galactic powers understood the gravity of the situation now. The laws of the universe were being tested, and humanity was standing at the precipice. The Guardians have not intervened in millennia, one of the council leaders, a tall, cloaked figure from the ancient race of Celarans, said. And yet here they are. Why? Lysa felt the weight of the question in her bones. She didn't have an answer, but she knew one thing for certain. This was not just a conflict between the Varnathians and humanity. This was something far more profound. The Guardians were coming to ensure that the pact was upheld, but there was no guarantee that humanity would survive the trial ahead. They are coming for us, Lysa said quietly. Her voice was steady, but beneath it, there was an undercurrent of fear. And when they arrive, we will have no choice but to face them. The fleet surrounding Terra Prime had grown larger over the past weeks, with forces from all corners of the galaxy converging on the planet. The Varnathians were not the only threat humanity faced anymore. Something older, something far more powerful, was watching and preparing to act. As the stars blinked out again, this time across the entire system, Lysa knew the moment had come. The reckoning was not just about humanity's survival. It was about proving humanity's place in the universe. And whatever happened next, the galaxy would never be the same again. The pulse from the alien vessel had intensified, now a steady hum that resonated through every ship in the fleet and every building on Terra Prime. The Guardians were coming. Whatever they were, whoever they were, their arrival was no longer a distant possibility. It was imminent. And with them came the overwhelming weight of their judgment. The stars flickered once more, and for a moment, the universe itself seemed to pause, holding its breath in anticipation. Lysa Vance stood at the observation deck of the Epsilon Sovereign, the Council's flagship, watching as the sky above Terra Prime twisted in unnatural ways. She had witnessed countless wonders in her time, but nothing compared to the magnitude of what she was seeing now. The galaxy was in turmoil, and humanity was at the heart of it. The Epsilon Sovereign was flanked by dozens of ships from across the galaxy, each representing different factions, each with their own interests in the fate of humanity. But all of them were united in a singular purpose: to witness the judgment that would decide whether humanity would be allowed to continue in the galaxy or whether they would be erased, a footnote in the annals of cosmic history. Lysa's mind raced. The message from the Keepers still echoed in her thoughts. Protect your people. But what did that mean? The Keepers had vanished, leaving humanity to fend for itself. Now, the Guardians, the ancient enforcers of the Pact, were coming. They had watched over the universe for eons, ensuring the balance of all things. Their purpose was clear: to maintain the integrity of the Pact and to punish those who would defy it. But what was humanity's place in this grand cosmic scheme? A transmission suddenly interrupted her thoughts. It was from the alien vessel. The Varnathians, still in orbit, had attempted to communicate with the fleet. But there was no greeting, no words of surrender. Only a chilling message: we are prepared to fight. It was a direct challenge to the Guardians. The Varnathians, in their arrogance, believed they could resist the coming judgment. They had violated the pact, yet they were unafraid. They did not know what was coming for them, nor did they understand the full weight of their actions. Lysa knew, however, that this was not a battle they could win. The Guardians were not interested in conflict. They were the arbiters of fate, the final authority in the galaxy. And if the Varnathians stood in their way, they would be crushed. The fleet watched in silence as the alien vessel began to move, its energy field pulsing with newfound intensity. It was as if the Varnathians were preparing for something that would change the course of the galaxy. Then, without warning, the skies above Terra Prime erupted in a brilliant burst of light. The Guardians had arrived. Their ships were unlike anything humanity had ever seen, vast, sleek, and impossible to comprehend. They moved with a grace that defied the laws of physics, their forms shimmering and shifting, as though they were not bound by the same rules as the rest of the universe. The ships did not resemble anything conventional. They were alive, composed of a material that pulsed with energy, and at their heart, Lysa felt an undeniable presence, something that transcended time and space. The first words they spoke were not in any language humanity knew. The words were not meant to be understood. They were felt, experienced. A presence filled the minds of everyone in the fleet, overwhelming their senses with a singular, all-encompassing thought. You are being tested. It was not a question. It was a command. And with that, the Guardians began their judgment. The Varnathians, sensing the coming storm, launched a full-scale assault. Energy blasts erupted from their ship, aimed at the fleet and the massive ships of the Guardians. But it was as if the blasts were meaningless. The Guardians' vessels shifted effortlessly, dodging every attack as though they were simply part of the fabric of reality itself. The Varnathians' desperation grew, and they sent out waves of energy to destabilize the area. But no matter how they fought, it became apparent that they were outmatched. The Guardians were not only superior in power, they were a force that operated on an entirely different level of existence. Their mere presence seemed to bend space and time itself, rendering every Varnathian weapon useless. And then, with a wave of their collective energy, the Guardians moved to Terra Prime. The planet, once trembling under the influence of the alien vessel, seemed to stabilize for the first time since the cosmic disturbances began. The energy pulses slowed, and the distorted space around the planet began to smooth out, as if the universe itself had been recalibrated. Lysa watched, breathless, as the Guardians descended toward the surface of Terra Prime. The judgment had begun. It was then that she understood. The universe was not judging humanity in the same way it judged the Varnathians. Humanity had a place in the galaxy, but what that place was, what the Guardians would decide, was still unknown. The arrival of the Guardians had completely altered the atmosphere in the galaxy. Their ships, immense and alive with an energy beyond comprehension, hovered above Terra Prime like titans of an ancient age. The battle between the Varnathians and the Guardians had ended before it even truly began. The Varnathian vessel, now powerless, had been forced to withdraw, unable to withstand the sheer force of the cosmic being's presence. But it wasn't the Varnathians that held humanity's fate in their hands. It was the Guardians. Lysa stood on the observation deck once again, her hands gripping the cold railing as she watched the ships descend. The entire fleet watched in silence, as though the entire universe had become still in anticipation. The Guardians had arrived not just to protect humanity, but to deliver a decision that would change the course of the galaxy forever. The voices of the Guardians filled every mind, not through sound, but through thought. The presence of their collective consciousness was overwhelming, almost suffocating in its weight. Each thought, each idea, was as sharp as a blade cutting through the fog of uncertainty. Humanity has been tested. The words, clear and direct, echoed through Lysa's mind. The fleet's leaders, the members of the Galactic Council, stood alongside her, their expressions unreadable. They had witnessed the destruction of the Varnathians, but they, too, understood the true nature of this moment. Humanity was not merely fighting for survival, they were fighting for their place in the cosmos. Your actions have drawn the attention of the ancient forces that bind this galaxy together. And now, we must decide. The weight of those words was staggering. What decision? How could humanity ever know what the Guardians would choose? Lysa knew that humanity's role in the galaxy wasn't just about strength or technology. It was about something deeper, something unseen. The Varnathians had violated the pact, but humanity had only reacted, had only tried to protect itself. It wasn't about power, it was about purpose. But what was that purpose? The Guardians hovered above, their ships now a network, connecting through light and energy in patterns that seemed to weave through the very stars themselves. They were ancient beyond measure, creatures of such vast intelligence that the concept of time held no meaning for them. Their judgment was not based on the actions of one species alone, but on the cosmic balance they maintained. The fleet, along with Lysa, waited. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Lysa could feel their collective uncertainty, their fear. What if humanity's purpose wasn't enough? What if their place in the universe was one of insignificance? What if they were nothing more than a brief flicker in the endless night? Then, as suddenly as the thoughts had appeared, the Guardian spoke again. Humanity has been chosen. Lysa's heart skipped a beat. Chosen for what? She couldn't comprehend it. The fleet, the council, and all of Terra Prime held its breath. The stars themselves seemed to pause in their dance, as though the galaxy awaited the final answer. The test was not one of strength or technology. It was a test of unity, of the ability to protect those who cannot protect themselves, of the willingness to uphold the balance, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Humanity has proven that it will fight for its own, that it will stand together in the face of the unknown. Lysa felt the words resonate deep within her soul, the weight of their meaning sinking into her. It was not about dominating the galaxy or bending it to their will. Humanity had proven that it could protect itself, that it had the potential to rise above the darkness. And that was what the universe needed. Not a species of conquerors, but a species of guardians, guardians of balance, of unity, and of life itself. Humanity will be allowed to continue. But your journey has only just begun. The galaxy is vast, and it is full of dangers you cannot yet comprehend. You will be tested again, and this time it will not be by us. Lysa's mind reeled as the Guardians' presence receded, their ships beginning to fade from sight. The sky above Terra Prime began to stabilize, the strange distortions vanishing as quickly as they had come. The stars burned brightly once again, their lights clear and steady. Humanity had passed the test. The Varnathians, defeated and broken, retreated, their once proud empire now a fading memory. The galaxy, for the first time in eons, felt at peace, at least for now. Lysa stood at the observation deck, staring out at the stars, her heart full of both awe and uncertainty. Humanity had been granted its place in the cosmos, but the road ahead was still unclear. The universe was vast, and many challenges remained. But one thing was certain. Humanity had a purpose, and it was not one of survival alone. It was one of protection, unity, and guardianship. And that purpose would define the future of the galaxy.